I didn't mean to hear it. I wasn't even supposed to be in the room. The baby had been fussy, and they'd left the monitor on. I was just trying to tidy up while they were out, folding a few blankets and checking the temperature in the nursery. That's when I heard his voice, low, cruel, unguarded, saying things no man should say about a woman's mother, my daughter's husband, a man who always smiled too wide, who called me Ma, like it meant something. That voice I once trusted spoke into the empty room like he didn't think anyone could hear him. But I did, and I never forgot what he said. I didn't say anything then. I didn't storm out. I didn't confront him. I just sat on the edge of the rocking chair and listened. And then I made sure the baby monitor was still recording. If you're still here, listening to this story, you probably know what it's like to be quietly erased in your own family. You give and give. Your time, your patience, your name. And then one day you look around and realize you've become background noise, a suggestion, not a person. My name is Margaret. I'm 71 years old. I used to be strong, a nurse for 35 years, a mother to one child, a wife to a man who died too soon. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't confused. But over the last few years, my daughter's husband tried to make me seem like I was both. It started slow, like most betrayals do. A misplaced item here, a forgotten word there. I'd mention a conversation we had, and he'd chuckle and say, "We never talked about that, remember?" But we had. I knew we had. At first, I thought it was me. I started double-checking myself, keeping lists, writing notes. Then I caught in moving things. My pills, my reading glasses. Once, even the lockbox with my insurance documents. Each time he'd act surprised. Must have been the baby, he'd laugh, even though she was barely crawling. My daughter didn't notice. She was exhausted, new to motherhood, grateful for a husband who cooked dinners and washed bottles. I didn't want to be the one who cast a shadow on her peace. But the thing about being old is, you've seen enough to know when something's not right. I knew. I just didn't have proof. Not yet. Until that afternoon, when the monitor picked up more than crying. He was on the phone with someone. I couldn't tell who. He didn't say a name. But I remember his words. Clearly. "She's slipping, I'm telling you. Give it a few more months, and we'll have everything in her name." He laughed. "Margaret, she won't even know where she is by then." That's when the air went still. I should have been shocked, should have been angry, but mostly, I felt cold, like a piece of me had gone quiet. I sat there with the folded blankets in my lap, listening to the rest of the conversation. Plans, timelines, mentions of my house, my account, my daughter's signature. He wasn't just talking, he was orchestrating. And the worst part? He knew she'd believe him over me. That's what abusers count on. That you'll be too polite, too ashamed, too scared of being labelled dramatic or confused. That you'll stay quiet while they build the narrative around you. But I wasn't going to stay quiet. I didn't tell my daughter that day. I didn't hand her the recording and demand she pick sides. That's not how you fight this kind of war. You don't shout. You wait. You document. You outlast. I took the monitor and copied the file. I saved it onto a small USB and tucked it into the inside lining of my purse. And then I started writing everything down. Every strange glance. Every accidentally deleted voicemail. Every time he tried to speak for me in front of the doctor, or make a joke about how I was starting to get forgetful. I wrote it all, dated it, filed it. And then, when I saw the legal papers, the ones asking me to sign over power of attorney, I didn't panic, I just smiled. "Let me sleep on it," I said. That night, I made 3 copies of the file. One I kept. One I mailed to my lawyer. The third? That one I left inside the baby's stuffed animal. The one they never checked. The one with the zipper for batteries that no longer worked. Just in case. He thought I was fragile. That age made me easy to manipulate. What he didn't understand was that years of caretaking teach you something dangerous. How to observe without being noticed. How to collect evidence in plain sight. How to wait until the moment matters. When my daughter finally heard the recording, really heard it, she sat down without saying a word. And then, for the first time in months, she looked at me like I was someone to believe. She didn't say anything right away. My daughter just sat there, staring at the floor, her mouth slightly open, but no sound coming out. She held the baby monitor in both hands, like it might suddenly catch fire. I watched her face change, frame by frame, as the recording played in that calm, damning voice, her husband's voice. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I let the silence fill the room, the way years of doubt had filled the space between us. When the audio ended, she looked at me. Not with anger, not with guilt. Just confusion, as if the ground under her feet had shifted, and she wasn't sure whether to run or fall. That's how betrayal often feels when it comes from the person you sleep beside. I could have told her then that I'd known all along, that every strange suggestion he made about putting my name on shared accounts, or helping manage my prescriptions, or encouraging me to take more time to rest, had been part of a quiet pattern. I could have told her I recognized the signs from the hospital, how some patients came in not just sick, but slowly poisoned by someone who knew how to stay just under the radar. But I didn't say any of that. I just told her the truth. He wanted control. And you were never supposed to find out this way. She nodded once, slowly. Then she stood up and walked to the hallway without a word. I didn't follow her. I heard the bedroom door open, then a low, muffled argument, his voice rising, hers cracking, a slammed drawer, a sob, and footsteps, heavy ones, coming back toward me. When the door opened again, it was just her, eyes red, phone in hand. He's going to stay at his brother's, she said, her voice hoarse. Just for a few days. I need time. It wasn't a victory. It didn't feel like one. She was broken, not just from the betrayal, but from realizing she'd let it happen in her house, right under her nose, to her own mother. And I had to carry that guilt too, because I hadn't told her sooner, because I'd chosen patience over confrontation. And in doing so, I let it rot longer than it should have. But the thing about aging is you learn when to wait and when to act. And now, finally, it was time to act. I told her about the documents he'd tried to get me to sign, about the incident at the bank when he insisted I couldn't remember my PIN and offered to handle the withdrawal himself. I told her about the appointment he cancelled behind my back, the day I was supposed to meet with my estate planner. She sat there, her hands gripping the armrest, as I unfolded it all, one thread after another, each one a moment she had missed, but now made horrible sense. I should have seen it, she whispered. I should have known. He made sure you wouldn't, I said. That's how men like him work. They don't need to be cruel, just convincing. She nodded, but there was a hollowness in her eyes I hadn't seen before, like she was trying to stitch two realities together, the man she loved and the man he truly was. I didn't rush her. I didn't ask for apologies. What I needed now wasn't her regret. It was her strength. Because the next steps weren't just emotional, they were legal, practical, dangerous in their own quiet way. We met with the lawyer the following week. I brought everything. Copies of the audio, the journal where I'd recorded months of small manipulations, the documents he had me look over, and my revised will. The lawyer, a seasoned woman with sharp eyes and a voice like sandpaper, didn't blink once. You did the right thing, she said. Most women never catch it in time. You did. That was the first time in a long while I felt like someone saw me as sharp, as credible, not just old. We put measures in place immediately, removed him from all financial ties, cancelled the power of attorney forms he'd tried to push through, froze any shared accounts he might have tampered with. My daughter sat beside me through every meeting. She never once let him speak on my behalf again. He tried, of course, called her, messaged me, even showed up once, standing outside the porch with a carefully confused look on his face. I think you're overreacting, he said through the screen door. I was just trying to help. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My daughter stepped in front of me and closed the door without a word. That winter, the baby turned 1. We had a quiet celebration, just the 3 of us. I made the same applesauce cake I used to bake for my daughter when she was a baby. She smiled as she fed a piece to the child. And then she looked at me, not like a burden, not like a shadow from the past, but like someone she trusted again. Thank you, she said quietly, placing her hand over mine, for not giving up on me, or on her. I didn't cry. I didn't say much at all, just pressed her hand gently and nodded. Because this kind of justice doesn't come with applause. It comes with presence, with being believed again, with a door closed and a new one left open, quietly, and on your terms. Spring came slowly that year. The frost held on longer than usual, like the cold itself didn't want to let go. I found myself out in the yard more often, sitting on the bench beneath the dogwood tree, watching the ground thaw a little more each day. My joints were stiffer now. The cane came with me more than it used to, but the air felt lighter, not because anything miraculous had happened, but because something poisonous had finally been named. Sometimes, just naming it is enough to begin healing. My daughter still didn't speak much about what happened. She was quieter, more withdrawn in certain ways, and sharper in others. She started attending the estate meetings herself, asking the hard questions I used to have to nudge her toward. She changed the locks. She updated her own will. She told him not to contact her again. And more than anything, she began seeing me with clearer eyes, not as someone fragile, not as someone fading, but as someone who had endured something and still stood. She apologized once, softly, one morning over tea. For not seeing it, she said. For believing him when he made me doubt you. I told her the truth. That's what they do. They take your love and twist it into something useful for them. But you saw it in the end. That's what matters. And I meant it, because people make mistakes, but not everyone makes it back. She did. We did. The baby, her name was Ruby, started walking not long after the silence settled in, wobbly at first, arms out like a tightrope walker, always aiming for something solid. I remember thinking that's what we all do, deep down. Walk toward the person we think will catch us. She started following me around the house, her little feet tapping against the hardwood floors. In the afternoons, when my daughter was catching up on errands or paperwork, Ruby would tug at my sleeve and gesture toward the backyard. Go, she'd ask, barely more than a whisper. I always said yes. Out there, among the rosemary and the thyme, I found something I hadn't realized I'd lost. The feeling of being needed for who I was, not for what I owned or controlled. I began teaching Ruby about the garden, which plants to touch, which ones to leave alone, how to press your hand gently into the soil to see if it's ready. I showed her the bird bath, the bee balm, the place where the tulips come in crooked but strong. She didn't understand most of it, not yet. But she listened, and that was enough. One afternoon she found the notebook, the one I'd kept hidden behind the flower pots, not because it contained anything secret, but because it was mine, my record, not of betrayal this time, but of growth. I'd started a new one after the storm passed. In it, I wrote down the days we spent together, the questions she asked, the way her laughter sounded different when she was near the lavender bushes. That day, when she found it, she opened it carefully, like it might break. She ran her tiny fingers across the page and pointed at one of the words. Mama, she asked. I shook my head. No, baby, I said. That one's me. She smiled, then pointed to another line. Ruby. I nodded. Yes. That's you. She closed the notebook and held it to her chest for a moment, then put it back exactly where she found it. I don't know if she understood what she'd done, but I did. That little gesture told me something important, that the future doesn't need to be protected by force. It needs to be witnessed and remembered. A few months later, I met with my lawyer again. I wanted everything updated. My assets, my instructions, my intentions, not just because of what had happened with my son-in-law, but because I had realized how many assumptions I had left unspoken. And unspoken things are dangerous. They can be manipulated, reworded, turned into something you never meant. I made it clear that my daughter was now my executor, that no one else had access or claim. I created a living trust. I moved the house into it. I even wrote a letter to be read if anything ever seemed out of place again. Not dramatic, not angry, just clear. My daughter read the papers silently when I brought them home. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just hugged me afterward and said, "Thank you for trusting me again." I told her, "You earned it." And she had. As for him, her husband, I don't know where he is now. I don't ask. I don't need to know. My peace doesn't come from his punishment. It comes from knowing I was not wrong. I was not confused. I was not fading. And I was not alone. That's the thing no one warns you about when you get older. How easily people can dismiss your instincts. How they laugh when you say something doesn't feel right. But what they forget is that the longer you live, the sharper your sense for danger becomes. You learn to see what's not being said. And if you're patient, if you're careful, you learn how to wait for the moment that matters most. Ruby is 2 now. She calls me Mimi and asks to help stir the soup, water the garden, pick the mint. Sometimes she asks about the baby monitor, the one we keep in the kitchen drawer now, unplugged but still there. I don't tell her the whole story. Not yet. One day, maybe, when she's old enough to understand that family isn't about who shows up for the good times, but who protects you when no one's watching. Until then, I'll keep teaching her what I know. I'm not afraid anymore. Not of being forgotten, not of being doubted. Because I wrote it all down. I saved the recording. I left the truth behind, where it could be found. And that, in the end, was enough. If stories like this resonate with you, subscribe. Because silence should never be how someone's story ends.